The first reading today gives you just a couple paragraphs of 2 chapters that are in Leviticus explaining all about the different aspects of leprosy and how it has to be acknowledged and what the priest should be doing with the whole issue of leprosy. Personally, I'm really thankful that priests got rid of that job because that would be kind of hard to be a dermatologist. You had somebody come in, and those chapters, compared to what we got here, they're very detailed about the different types of skin infections that may or may not be leprosy. But as you heard, the consequence of leprosy was separation. They had to be very clear that they were diseased so that nobody would just perchance stumble upon this person. So their clothes had to be torn, they couldn't comb their hair, they rang bells or they shouted that they were unclean. It's the great sadness of that disease to live away from all your loved ones. That is the consequence. Back in January, before COVID came, when I was in Hawaii, I had a chance to go over to Molokai, to Kalupapa, to what was the leper colony there, where Damian and Molokai ministered for quite a few years. The only way to get there is by a little plane, so you have to fly into it because there was a trail along the cliffs, but the trail has collapsed, so the only way in or out is to fly. One of the saddest sights there was this building that was used for visits between parents and children, between loved ones. So they would come every so often to visit their loved ones who were at the leper colony. But in this building, there was a big table and a screen in between. So you were a good 6 to 8 feet away from your mom or your dad or your brother or sister who came to visit you, because you didn't want to infect them, so you had to stay on the far side of the table. So visitors came in one door, those with leprosy came in the other. I thought, how sad. If you were a child to be removed from your family, and there were many children at Kalupapa. Wow. The cure for leprosy wasn't discovered until 1946. And so that colony still had people in it until very recently. Some of the ones who were living there until the cure came just finally died. Separation. We've experienced that a bit with COVID. And people will talk about how sad it was for people to die alone in hospitals, separated from loved ones, in nursing homes, where families, the best they could do was be at the window and wave to mom or wave to dad in the last moments of their life, maybe talk to them by phone, but a separation. It is that experience of separation that this fellow in the gospel has today. He suffers from leprosy, and so he is far away. He humbly talks to Jesus today, saying, if you will it, you could do this. You could change my life by healing me. Jesus' response is immediately back, I do. And the gospel uses an interesting phrase in the Greek that Jesus is moved with pity. In the Greek, it's an intestinal movement, meaning he could not ignore it. You know what those are like, right? We all have those once in a while where our stomachs say, you're going to do something now. Oh yeah, I am. I'm not going to argue with you. I'm going to obey what you're demanding. It's that kind of demand of compassion in Jesus that he is moved to heal this man, to bring him back. And even though he tells him to be quiet, don't just go show yourself to the priest, fulfill the rules, go to the dermatologist, make sure you're clean. He cannot not tell people. For he had been separated. What longing there must have been in him to be reunited with his loved ones, with family, those he cared about, who he's been separated from for who knows how long. But he could go back now. Jesus desires that reunion. He is moved with compassion to have it. And that truth about Jesus is still there today. That Jesus doesn't want anyone to be lost, anyone to be apart from the community. He desires everybody to belong. And so he continues to reach out and to pull others in through you and me. Because that's our job now, to be the body of Christ and to make sure that people are not separated. And so we always have to be sure that we're welcoming in those who might not feel like they belong for some reason or another, who are experiencing some kind of social leprosy that makes them feel apart. We need to let them know that the body of Christ still is moved with compassion for them to bring them back. But I also think people suffer from a kind of spiritual leprosy where they separate themselves from others or separate themselves from God. And maybe they're not even aware of it. And maybe it's us. Maybe we're not aware of it. I think sometimes a spiritual leprosy of busyness gets in the way in people's lives. Work or things that they just feel like they need to do. And so the busyness keeps them far away from God or far away from others. Too busy. Just simply too busy. Or so many people anymore, young people especially, have the leprosy of being online all day long. And maybe that's some kind of human connection. But a lot of times it's just filled with busyness, filling up time and space without anything productive coming out of it at all. A leprosy of being online, no time for God, no time for others, because it gets all eaten up there. Still a separation. And there are lots of those kind of spiritual leprosies. Perhaps it might be wise as we go into these last few days before Lent to look around to see in ourselves or in others those who are experiencing a kind of alienation through their own choosing or through the actions of others. And to be moved with compassion and to will that they join again. For that's the worst part of that disease or any disease, that you don't feel like you belong. When Jesus says you do.